If you believe hip-hop drama only explodes when someone drops a diss track, it might be time to rethink that. Sometimes the loudest battles don't happen in a recording studio. They don't come with heavy bass or sharp punchlines. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in velvet, fastened with gold, and posted on Instagram with perfect lighting. This time, the spark wasn't a song. It was a bracelet. Not just any bracelet, but a black onyx and gold piece from Cleef and Arpels, a brand that carries serious weight in celebrity culture. And almost overnight, social media gave the situation a dramatic name: the Cleef War. It sounds exaggerated. It sounds theatrical. But if you watched how it unfolded online, you know it wasn't really about jewelry. It was about pride, about public image, about timing, about who controls the narrative when a long relationship ends and a new one begins under a spotlight. And nothing about it was subtle. The Valentine's Day that changed the tone. On February 14th, 2026, while most couples were exchanging simple gifts, flowers from the grocery store, a box of chocolates, maybe dinner ordered through an app, Papoose went in a completely different direction. He didn't plan a quiet dinner in a corner booth. He didn't write a private love note. He staged an experience. The setting was a beach. Not just any casual beach outing, but something that looked like a movie set. Roses were arranged carefully across the sand, forming patterns that were clearly designed to be photographed from above. Professional photographers moved around the scene. Drones hovered in the sky, capturing wide cinematic angles. And above it all, there was skywriting, actual letters carved into the air. At the center of the display stood Claressa Shields, a world champion boxer known for her strength, discipline, and undeniable accomplishments in sports. On that day, however, she wasn't in a boxing ring. She was in the middle of a grand romantic production. Then came the moment everyone zoomed in on. Papoose presented her with a black onyx and gold Alhambra bracelet from Cleef and Arpels. It wasn't slipped on casually. It was displayed, highlighted, captured from multiple angles. The bracelet gleamed in the sunlight. The cameras made sure of that. In hip-hop culture, Cleef isn't just another jewelry brand. It signals status, commitment, serious investment. When someone gifts that brand publicly, especially in such a dramatic setting, it sends a message whether they intend it to or not. People didn't just see a Valentine's gift. They saw a statement. It felt like an announcement. This is who I'm choosing. This is who I'm celebrating. This is who I'm investing in. And the internet reacted immediately. The relationship that came before. To understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to rewind. For years, Remy and Papoose were viewed as one of hip-hop's strongest couples. Their relationship survived serious challenges. They built a brand around loyalty, endurance, and public support. Many fans admired them. They weren't just partners, they were a symbol. But over time, that image began to crack. Their separation didn't unfold quietly. It happened in public, piece by piece. There were online statements, alleged leaked messages, accusations floating around social media, rumors of divorce discussions, claims of emotional conflict, stories planted, stories denied. The once celebrated love story became complicated. And somewhere in that unraveling, Claressa Shields' name entered the conversation, not just as a decorated athlete, but as someone reportedly connected to Papoose during the breakdown of his marriage. So when Valentine's Day 2026 arrived with skywriting and luxury jewelry, it didn't feel random. It felt timed. And timing matters. The post that changed everything. While the internet replayed drone footage and fashion blogs analyzed the bracelet's value, Remy Ma did something unexpected. She didn't go live. She didn't write a long explanation. She didn't accuse anyone. She posted one photo. Just her wrist. On it were multiple Cleef bracelets. Not one, not two, several. Some vintage, some diamond-studded. Different styles layered together effortlessly. And beneath the image, she wrote a single word: layers. That was it. No hashtags. No long caption. No emotional breakdown. Just layers. And somehow, That quiet post felt louder than the skywriting, because the message was clear without being spelled out. While one bracelet was being introduced as a grand romantic milestone, Remy showed she had been collecting them for years, long before this public shift, long before this new relationship became headline news. It wasn't about competing for attention. It was about history, and the internet noticed immediately why that one word carried so much weight. Layers wasn't just about jewelry. It suggested depth, experience, longevity. It hinted at something built over time rather than presented all at once. People interpreted it in many ways.
Some saw it as a subtle flex. Others saw it as dignity.
Some called it petty. Others called it brilliant. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing.
It was strategic.
Remy didn't need a full production. She didn't need to match the spectacle. She simply reminded people that she had already been there, already lived that lifestyle, already built that legacy. In a world where everyone overshares, her restraint felt powerful. The scoreboard effect of luxury. In celebrity culture, luxury items are rarely just personal. They become symbols, status markers, silent announcements. One bracelet can say, "I am valued." A stack of bracelets can say, "I have always been valued." That's why the comparison caught fire online. It turned into a kind of unspoken scoreboard. Who wore it first? Who had more? Who had history? Of course, relationships aren't supposed to be competitions. But when everything is public and documented, symbolism becomes unavoidable. Luxury becomes language. And both women were speaking it just in different ways. The alleged response. Not long after Remy's post, fans began sharing screenshots suggesting that Claressa had responded with another bracelet photo and a caption implying she was the real partner now. Whether it was meant as shade or simply celebration, it added fuel to the discussion. Here's something interesting about social media battles. The person who posts once and goes quiet often appears calmer than the one who keeps replying. Remy made her statement and disappeared. If Claressa responded again, even subtly, it shifted perception. It made it seem as though the first post had landed harder than expected. In public opinion, appearing unbothered usually wins. Love or narrative control. It's important to be fair here. It's entirely possible that Papoose genuinely wanted to celebrate Claressa in a big way. Some people love grand gestures. Some relationships thrive on public displays. Romance doesn't have to be small to be real. But context changes how things are received. When you are in the middle of public controversy, when headlines have been messy for months, a highly produced romantic display doesn't land quietly. It lands as a headline. Celebrity relationships today are not just personal, they are stories being told in real time. And stories are shaped intentionally. When negative press builds up, one way to redirect attention is to create something beautiful, cinematic, and trending. Something that floods search results with positive imagery. That doesn't mean the love isn't real. It just means the optics matter. And Remy's Quiet Layers post disrupted that shift in narrative. She didn't argue facts. She didn't expose private details. She didn't beg for sympathy. She simply reminded everyone that her chapter wasn't something that could be erased. The psychology beneath the surface. When someone moves on publicly after a long relationship, there is often an invisible pressure to prove something. To prove happiness. To prove growth. To prove the decision was right. Sometimes that pressure leads to grand displays. The bigger the doubt, the bigger the gesture. It's human nature. But genuine security usually feels calm. It doesn't rush to convince. It doesn't need applause. That's why Remy's approach resonated with so many people. It felt grounded. It felt steady. It didn't scream. It whispered, and still commanded attention. Legacy versus new beginnings. Online debates quickly turned into comparisons. Some fans argued that Remy represented years of shared history, cultural impact, and brand building in hip-hop. Others defended Claressa as a powerful champion in her own lane, with achievements that speak for themselves. The debate wasn't really about who was better. It was about legacy versus new beginnings. Remy symbolized history. Claressa symbolized now. And when luxury enters that conversation, it becomes symbolic. Is this an upgrade? A fresh start? A continuation? That's why the bracelet mattered so much. Not because of its price tag, but because of what it seemed to represent: the power of restraint. Perhaps the most striking part of the entire situation was Remy's restraint. She didn't drag anyone. She didn't overshare. She didn't fight publicly. She posted once and let the internet do the rest. In a culture that rewards loud reactions, silence can feel revolutionary. Her response showed something many people struggle with after a breakup: dignity. Instead of arguing for validation, she showed self-assurance. And that's why so many viewers described it as a masterclass. When Instagram becomes an arena, social media has changed how relationships unfold. Anniversaries become content. Gifts become headlines. Vacations become evidence. Once something is posted, it becomes public property for interpretation. In this case, Instagram turned into an arena. Bracelets became symbols. Captions became strategies. Timing became everything. The audience didn't just watch. They judged. They picked sides. They analyzed. No diss tracks. No interviews. Just images. And yet the impact felt just as intense.
So, who won?
If you measure by spectacle, the Valentine's Beach production was unforgettable. If you measure by narrative impact, the single word layers may have shifted the conversation more. But maybe this isn't about winning at all. Maybe it's about how fragile public perception can be. Maybe it's about how easily love can be interpreted as performance once cameras are involved. Maybe it's about the uncomfortable truth that in celebrity culture, nothing feels accidental. The bigger takeaway: strip away the fame, the brand names, and the luxury setting, and this story becomes deeply relatable. Most people have experienced watching someone move on. Most people have felt the sting of comparison. Most people have wondered if they were valued fully. The difference is that most of us don't live those moments under a spotlight. The strongest move in situations like that isn't always loud.